Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Transcending Together with Julianne and Leigh. Good afternoon, beautiful and amazing human beings. It's a hello from me.
And it's a hello from Leigh.
So, how is everyone doing? It's nearly Christmas. Yay!
I
Being
can't
as
believe how quickly this year's gone.
but we say that every year. It just always seems to happen that way, doesn't it? So,
I think that
yeah, I don't
the
know.
older you get, the quicker it goes.
Yeah, you start running out of time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I've had a pretty good week. 2 weeks, no drinks, so that's quite good.
awesome.
I must admit,
Pat yourself on the
I
back.
do miss though. I'm missing it, but I feel better for it. I have to say. So that's a bit of good news. And this week we're actually planning to do a whole show around good news that's been coming out recently. So hopefully you will appreciate that because I think the last few sessions that we've done have been quite serious and quite just very, I guess, not good news is probably the best way of putting it. Maybe a little bit pessimistic. So that's what we'll be focusing on this week. But before we get started, Leigh, what you been up to?
I haven't been up to much because last week I was pretty busy getting all my work sorted before I went on leave. So I'm now on leave. Yay! And just winding down for the rest of the year, taking a chill.
Sorry, just adjusting my camera there because I get a little bit OCD if it's not exactly straight. Yes, I think that's not that any of you will have noticed it, but I noticed. Okay, so good news stories of the week. Shall I go first?
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so I thought I would start out with this story, which is says that two sites have been chosen for a British rainforest project. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
Craig y Cohen, I don't know if I'm saying that right, or Cowan maybe, in the Isle of Man and Bryn Ifan in North Wales have become the first two sites named as beneficiaries of Aviva's £38 million fund to restore and expand Britain's rainforests, which, after many years of destruction, to clear space for farming or development, now cover just 1% of the country. Benefits are multifaceted, with the restoration of trees to the areas will remove carbon, thus providing cleaner air and water and reducing the risk of flooding. It will additionally provide habitats for wildlife and restore lost or ailing ecosystems. And finally, it will benefit local communities who will have greater access to nature and be more involved in a variety of rainforest projects. Isn't that nice? What do you think?
I think that's fantastic. How long is it going to take to grow these trees, or are they going to import them half grown?
It doesn't really say, but there is a link to the video. So I will put the link in the comments and in the video here if people want to cut away and have a look at that and how it's all going to work. But that's really cool. That's good news. I mean, definitely, I think for me, I remember learning at school that if we continued to destroy the rainforests the way we are elsewhere in the world, when I was at school, so this was sort of 87, 88, they taught us that if we cut down all the rainforests, global CO2 levels would rise. Funny that, hey?
Funny that.
And it's like, as I'm sitting here and I'm looking out the window, I've got the most beautiful tree, which in winter, it looks like a giant lung. Actually, I'll take a picture and I'll insert
Yeah.
it because it's absolutely stunning and it looks just like a lung. And it is, because it is. It's just the reverse of what we do. We breathe in oxygen and out carbon dioxide, and they breathe in carbon dioxide and out oxygen. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome. So that's my good news story, number one. What about you, Leigh? What have you got for us?
Well, something that caught my eye, and it's kind of like linked into what you're saying, is that there's been a report, a scientific analysis done by Climate Brain, which shows that global emissions of CO2 appear to be flattening. So I think that is good news. And I mean, we've spoken about climate change and all the rest of it on the show before. And it's like the prevailing narrative asserts that it's human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels, which has led to an unprecedented increase in global temperatures, resulting in climate change. So this piece of information is quite positive, that we seem to be trending in the right direction for this.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think people are possibly being more conscious. I do still think that the real answer lies in commercial CO2 emissions. I still feel to a certain extent us reducing our CO2 emissions is a little bit like arriving at an earthquake with a dustpan and brush, but I suppose you do what you can. Yeah, there was a related article that I saw last week which said that Gen X's are least likely, no, Gen Z's are least likely to recycle, which I thought was interesting, given that they're
Very
supposed to be
interesting.
the more societally and ecologically aware of the various generations going at the moment. So I thought that was interesting, but that's definitely a good news story. And I
Actually,
do,
that is quite interesting because the Gen Zer that lives in my household is really poor at recycling. Things that should go in the blue bin end up in the general waste, and I think it's just in this particular case down to pure laziness.
yeah, I wonder actually, yeah. Um,
Can't be bothered.
Yeah, which is disappointing, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I can
I mean,
also,
we are on Gen X's. The rest of us are Gen X's, and we weren't brought up with this recycling thing. It's a new thing to us, and we're very good at it.
yeah, I guess I can relate. Maybe we feel guilt for the mess that we've created, so we feel the need to tidy it up. I also think that Gen X and Gen Z and millennials, we haven't really left. Maybe they feel like it's just too late. Like, what difference is
Why
recycling going to
bother?
make?
Yeah.
So I wonder about that actually. But I guess what we've got to do within each of our families is just reinforce the importance of it and just hope that they'll do that. Um, I mean, as two generations, they're the ones least likely to actually drive cars. I think when we were talking about voting and forms of photo ID, they were saying that Gen Zs and millennials are the least likely generation to have a driver's license because it's just so expensive to insure them. Even if you
Mm.
buy an old banger, you still got to insure it, and that's where they don't see the point. So I do think that as much as they might not be recycling, I think they do use public transport a lot more than our generation does because we kind of grew up with cars and we're kind of used to that. So so yeah, that's quite interesting, huh? But really good news on the CO2. Where was that? Where did you read that, by the way?
So it was an analysis done by Climate Brink. The website is called theclimatebrink.com. So maybe we can post the link below the video.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Okie dokie. Um, I think we've got time to squeeze one more in before we go to the break. So, in other good news, it says the NHS is to offer a drug to treat inherited cancers. And it says here that breast and prostate cancers are among those that are commonly inherited thanks to faulty versions of BRCA gene. It's good news then for anyone suffering from these cancers, as the NHS has approved the use of olaparib, a targeted therapy that will treat people with this specific form of the disease, improving quality of life as well as diminishing the chance of recurrence. 5% of women with breast cancer carry inherited gene fault. Olaparib will improve their chances of survival by approximately one third and extend life and improve quality of life for those with prostate cancer too. That's really nice. That's a good news story.
That's some really good news story, yeah. Especially because the NHS has decided to fund it, because they don't always decide to fund new drugs and things like that. So they've obviously done some good analysis and decided to fund it, which is really good.
Yeah, they're often very reactive, aren't they? They'll treat
Mm.
systems, but not symptoms. Sorry, but not necessarily preventative, I guess is the right word. I saw something really interesting on YouTube, and it's a little bit conspiracy theory, but we do like to do a bit of conspiracy theory now and then. I don't know, have you seen the research that these people have been doing using sound waves to break up cancer tumors, cancer cells?
No, but that does make sense.
Yeah, they've actually found a frequency, and it's actually a frequency that we as humans can actually generate. I mean, I probably couldn't because I'm tone deaf, but it does lend some credence to sort of Eastern mysticism and the way they used to heal with chant and that kind of thing. It does make you wonder, doesn't it? But it's really amazing when you see these, and I'll link again to that where you see these because they literally target the tumor with what's that medical device? Um,
An ultrasound, a
ultrasound.
Doppler.
Ultrasound. They target it with an ultrasound device, which can be very, very specific, can get right into the tumor, breaks it up, and in breaking it up, it actually allows the immune system to beat it up and defeat it. So that was something else that I came across recently. But of course, I
Well, I know for
guess
a long time they've been using sound waves to break up kidney stones. Those things are pretty hard. And the fact that I see us all as energy, and we vibrate at different frequencies. And again, that lends into the sort of like Eastern medicine kind of thing. So yeah, vibrating at a specific frequency. Yeah, I can see how that works pretty well. Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, I mean, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I guess the medical industry won't really like that, will they? Because
Of
it's
course not.
they can't make any money out of it. It's too cheap.
Money out of it. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
it'll have to sit in the alternative theories, the alternative medicine. But I do think if God forbid I ever got something like that, I would definitely investigate alternate therapies before I pumped myself full of radiation. I would
Or
like to believe I would. I don't know.
chemicals. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
All right, let's go to a break. And when we come back, Lee's going to tell us one of her exciting stories. See you in a bit. Did you know we've got an absolutely wonderful merch store? You can buy merch from the show. You can buy this mug, which supports my rugby team, the Sussex Dragons. This is one of my favourites. This is Best Part of Waking Up, Turf Tears in My Cup. We also have t-shirts, which support my rugby team, and t-shirts which express our dissatisfaction with England rugby for the way they've treated trans people. And for you bikers out there, we've got our Sisters on Steel Motorcycle Club. Scan this QR code or follow the links on tigergirl.substack.com. Now back to the show. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. So, as promised, Lee's got another good news story for us. Lee, what do you got?
And again, there seems to be a theme going on, but one of the good news articles that I came across was that in November they did an experiment in Portugal where the country ran on 100% renewables for 6 days in a row, meeting the needs of 10 million customers with wind, hydro, and solar energy. So I think that's quite exciting. And yeah, I mean, just think about it, like 10 million customers on renewable energy for 6 days in a row. I think that's a pretty good test run for operating the grid without fossil fuels going forward.
Yeah, I must admit, it's the one thing that I really don't understand. So, have you ever visited the Thames Barrier?
Yes, a long time ago. Very interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, but I've never really understood why they don't use tidal power to generate electricity. Because hydroelectric power is just water running past turbines, right? And I mean, I guess
Yeah.
it's always been something I've been quite well aware of because of the big hydroelectric power plant in Zimbabwe at Kariba Dam. And I just really struggle to understand why it takes why we haven't harnessed tidal power in an estuary like that. So that really surprised me because you could put one in Edinburgh. Is it Edinburgh? Sorry, Dundee. You know, big tidal surges there. I remember reading an article years ago with where they use the undulation of the waves
Mm.
to generate power. I mean, anything that moves can generate power. So, yeah, I just think there's so much more we could be doing. We don't necessarily need to be putting huge amounts of windmills up. But then also, I read this year they were saying that as part of the wind farm that's off Brighton, they're actually they've put things in place to allow coral to grow, and it's sort of regenerated the marine life in that particular area, which I thought was quite significant. All this talk about how these wind farms are out, the offshore wind farms are supposedly so bad for the environment, and yet they're actually doing a lot of stuff to mitigate the impact, and in fact are being helpful because barnacles attach themselves, and
Mm.
then fish come and feed off the barnacles, and it's creating a whole ecosystem all of its own. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, and yeah, but that's interesting. So Portugal, it was 100% or something, wasn't it?
100% of their electricity for 6 days. And yeah, that's serving a population of 10 million.
Wow,
So,
wow.
it's not just some little town that went, renewable for 6 days. It was like the whole country, really.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm still a very strong advocate on localized power generation. That we should actually just be trying to generate power on a more local basis rather than feeding into the big grid. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've got industrial scale interventions being put in place, I think that's really helpful. And in fact, that leads nicely on to my another one that I found, which was back in January, um, where it says here that. So this is from January this year. It says green energy has overtaken gas as the UK's leading source of electricity this winter. So that would have been last winter, sparing the country from an even worse energy crisis. And that's according to analysis from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, which said offshore wind was leading the charge. So it says wind has chosen a good year to overtake gas, given how expensive gas has become and questions around its security of supply. So I think that's really good. That's really good news. This year, power generated by renewables reached 34 terawatt hours between 1st of October 2022 and 13th of January 2023. 2 terawatt hours more than gas produced. Yeah. I think
I
getting rid
mean,
of
that's quite
Boris probably,
significant as well.
yeah. I think getting rid of Boris certainly eliminated a lot of the hot air. Hey? What do you think?
Could have used that as a power source.
His contribution to global warming is just opening his mouth. And I suppose that's a good news story as well, isn't it? The fact that we managed to get rid of Boris. Not sure that we ended up in a much better position, but thank goodness he's gone. That's a really good news. We also got rid of Priti Patel out of the cabinet. We got rid of Suella Braverman out of the cabinet. So it does show that public pressure worked. As much as we assume that they love to ignore us, I do think that there is a kind of like a groundswell, if you like, of sentiment that they can't avoid and ignore. What do you think?
I think they must be very worried because of the coming, upcoming elections and things like that, because it's ripe for a change. I think so sick and tired of same old, same old, same old, and people are looking for something new and different. So yeah, I would imagine
Yeah,
that these would be extremely concerned.
yeah. I think all I want for Christmas is a general election.
Yeah.
What other good news stories you got for us, Leigh?
Um, let's have a look. So, there was a new drug on offer for Alzheimer's, which promises to be a breakthrough. And this particular drug called Donanemab. Maybe we shouldn't put that one in. Yeah, it shows that it's cleaning up the protein buildup in the brain with people with Alzheimer's. So that's looking quite promising because yeah, Alzheimer's can be like so devastating, not just for the person but for the people in the Alzheimer's sufferers family. I don't know if you know anyone that's had Alzheimer's, but yeah, it really is a huge problem. So I think anything that works towards resolving that issue is positive news in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think the whole Alzheimer's thing. Um, I read once that smokers are statistically less likely to get Alzheimer's. And the theory was that it was because nicotine is good for the brain. And I guess it's the method that you get it in, right? So vaping and
Right.
smoking, I mean, neither of which are particularly healthy, right? But I suppose if you chew nicotine gum and that sort of thing, the nicotine's supposed to be good for your brain. But then some pessimist once said to me when I was telling them about that, and they said, yeah, or it could just be they die before the onset of Alzheimer's. So I was like, no, I'd rather take a
Yeah, there's
positive
always a
view on that.
different story.
Yeah, yeah, but that is good news. And I think that's where there really ought to be more. I find it strange in a way that penicillin was invented centuries ago. I mean, when was penicillin invented or discovered? I mean, they didn't invent, discovered it. And what does it say here? Let's see, penicillin. So it was Alexander Fleming in 1928 discovered penicillin. So yeah, I mean, we're nearly 100 years on from that. So yeah, I think we're due to come up with a new drug. What do you think? Especially
Yeah.
with all the what are they called? Antibiotic resistant virus bacteria. But this is good news. This is a good news story. So that was good. So good progress being made in the world of medicine. So that's really good news. And time for one more before we go to break because you can't have too much of good news. So a study coming out of Helsinki, Finland, said this week brought fresh evidence of nature's positive impact on public health. A study of 7,000 people in Helsinki, Finland, revealed a correlation between exposure to nature and lower use of prescription drugs such as antidepressants. Interestingly, the benefits of being in nature appeared to be strongest among those with the lowest household incomes, underscoring the need to improve public access to green spaces. So that's quite interesting. What do you think about that?
Sorry, I just got disturbed by the dogs there. um, they wanted to come in and be on the show. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a theme going on here with our good news, isn't there? There's kind of like the environmental and the medical impact and new studies and things like that. And these are very good news stories. And I think we have so much bad news all the time, that makes you feel down and depressed and why bother kind of thing. But especially this time of the year, with the excitement, I think it's good to focus on the positive for a change. And these are indeed positive things that you're not going to find on, the sort of like mainstream media thing, because that's all about doom and gloom. Whereas these other independent journalists and things like that, they really coming up with some really good positive actions that are happening in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, the mainstream, it's proven that bad news is always more sticky from an attention-seeking point of view. So, if you post on Facebook, "I'm having a lovely day," you don't
Nobody
get
sees it.
anything back, But if you put on there, "Oh, I feel like ending it all," everybody piles in to
Yeah.
help you out, which is yeah, I guess that's the challenge, isn't it? And it is one of the things that worries me about AI because that's where AI is learning from social media, and social media is very oriented towards catastrophe. So it is worrying. I think on this particular article, though, about time and nature, I think a big part of this has to do with, and this is like one of my bugbears, is the work life balance that we managed to achieve during the
Mm.
pandemic, and the way in which businesses are trying to force everyone back into the office again. And, at the end of the day, it's proven. It was like a global case study. Every single working professional worked from home. Obviously, a train driver or bus driver can't work from home. Well, not yet, anyway. But information workers, you think of the City of London and all of that. And I thought it was quite ironic because one of our team meetings, the boss was saying about how we all need to be more conscious about our carbon footprint, all the rest of it. And oh, you'll love this because I saw an article a few weeks ago about, is it time for a carbon passport? Is it time that we
Yeah.
limited
Hmm.
that you can only fly X amount? um, but yeah, so they're telling us all about managing our carbon footprint, but then forcing us back into the office. So yeah, the irony of that was not lost on me. Anyway, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, more good news. See you in a bit.
Merry Christmas from everyone at Trans Radio UK.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. So, Leigh, what have you got for us?
So I found a good news story that hundreds of fruit trees are being planted around Birmingham in a bid to boost biodiversity, food production, and public health. And, if you think about Birmingham, what springs to mind? It's probably not blossom-filled orchards and that sort of thing. But once upon a time, did you know England's second city, Birmingham, was surrounded by fruit trees, earning it the moniker the town ringed by blooms. And they want to bring a little bit of that nostalgia back into Birmingham by planting all these fruit trees. Again, linked to other stuff that we've been talking about planting the trees to absorb CO2. So I think that's a good piece of news there. And apparently they were going to be planting 600 fruit trees along the number 11 bus route for all of those familiar with Birmingham. And this bus route actually loops around the city and is believed to be one of the longest bus routes in Europe, not just England, but in Europe.
That's amazing. Birmingham.
Birmingham?
I really like that, and that's good for the bees as well, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think this year we did the no mow. We just left our garden to go natural. And, just looking out the window now, it didn't go mad. But all through the summer, there was different plants were flowering, and we had purples and then yellows. Yeah, and some whites. So, and apparently it's really, really good for the bees when you do that. And we've got to look after our bees because they're really
They're
important
so
for us, and
important. Yeah,
and
yeah.
they definitely love fruit trees. So that's really good. I like that. That makes me happy. There's actually a project which they're trying to get started. I'm not quite sure where it is, but they want to replace all the trees in this particular city with fruit trees, so that people can actually just come and get their own. And it's free to the public to just pick fruit, and that just seems to make so much sense. Um, I really like that. And it's playing on the positive side of human nature, because detractors to the scheme will come out and say, yeah, but what's to stop someone taking all the apples off the tree? And I think you are going to get that. You're never going to get rid of the
Yeah, of
chances
course.
and the people who are going to take more than their fair share. But I do think eventually, once they realize that those trees are always there and that fruit is always there, it'll reduce this impetus or this need to grab. And I do have an unhealthy optimism in human nature, and I think presented with the right set of circumstances, I do believe we make the right choice, not the wrong choice, more often than not.
Well, we did a huge veggie garden this year. And it was nice because the year-old grandson got to have fresh vegetables. But we produced far too much, and then what we do is we put it outside on a table. Like our potato crop was huge this year. It would take us so long to eat it, and the tomatoes. I'm the only one in the house that eats tomatoes, and we had a whole bunch of tomatoes, and we put it outside, and it's like free to take. And you'll be amazed at like people walking past, just grabbing it. And a couple of the other people on our sort of estate have done that as well. And like more towards the spring, we'd had like little tomato plants that we thought, oh, we've got too many, and we put those out, and people have picked them up. So I think it's good to produce your own food, and then if you've got surplus, why not share it?
Yeah, definitely. My friends in France, they've got an acre of land, and they grow fruit. And amongst the local community, they're always exchanging amongst each other for different things, which is really cool. It's like this. It's not even a barter system because it's not even like I'll give you
Mm,
12 tomatoes for 3 eggs. It's like I've got too many tomatoes. Oh, I've got too many eggs. How many eggs do you want? Oh, I'll take a dozen. Here, have this basket of tomatoes.
mm,
It's like, um, again, it just goes to the point that actually human nature is to share. Human nature is to be a community and to be with each other. And if we just reach out and connect with each other, our neighbors actually, during COVID, they set up a little library in their driveway, and you can just come, so you can put books in and you can take books out, and then
okay.
and they've never run out of books. No one's ever like taken all the books and disappeared, which just shows that human nature is actually
Yeah.
better
And
than
we've
than
spoken about this community living on a previous show, and it is wonderful to see that sometimes, there is good in society, and people do operate under the greater good narrative.
Yeah, I firmly believe that they do, and I just, like I said, I do believe in the inherent goodness of human beings. So this was so I came across a sporting one. Of course, the biggest good news story was the Springboks winning the World Cup for a third time. Was it three or four? Can't remember.
Four,
No, it was three.
fourth time.
Was it fourth time?
Yeah.
Trying to think. So there was South Africa,
1995,
Japan.
2007,
Yes,
2019, and 2023. Four.
yes, four times. So, but in other good news, it says that Wales netted a win for gender equality in football. So it says here, anyone who plays for the Welsh national football side will receive equal pay regardless of their gender, it was announced this week. The Welsh Football Association agreed to a landmark deal guaranteeing pay parity. It's understood that the men's side accepted a 25% pay cut, whilst the women's team received a 25% pay rise. In a joint statement, the men's and women's teams said, "We hope that this will allow future generations of boys and girls to see that there is equality across Welsh international football, which is important for society as a whole." Man, amen to that, hey? Um,
Last.
it, yeah, and I mean these footballers are paid huge amounts of money. There is definitely enough money in the system to justify paying everybody equally. And they love to go back to this point that, yeah, but women's sport doesn't draw the same attention. Well, it's because it's not given the same attention. If you give it the same attention and you give it the same promotion and you give it the same number of column inches in newspapers and in the good old mainstream media, once again, we're back on that one, then they will. There will be more uh, more engagement. I mean, you just look at the engagement around the women's rugby team, the English women's rugby team. They're a hugely popular outfit, and definitely amongst female supporters. They will always make sure that they get to an England match if it's within reach. So that's really good news. What do you think about that?
I still find it so hard to believe that in 2023 that there is still a gender pay gap. So anything that moves away from the gender pay gap is positive news, and hopefully it spread. I think if you can see success in one sphere, you can easily transfer it to another sphere, learning from the lessons learned and things like that. So hopefully it does continue to improve and get better.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why it shouldn't. It's carts and horses in a way, because it's like if you don't promote something, it's a bit like my rugby teams. That's another good news story, is the creation of the first ever trans women's rugby. And people always still say to me, "Oh, who are you going to get to play for you? Trans women have been banned for a year and a half. Where are you going to find players?" And I'm like, well, if you build it, they will come. And if they know that there's a place that they can go to, then they will go and play it, because people love sport. Not everybody loves sport, I get that, but people who love sport love sport. And that equal opportunity, I think, is absolutely critical to people, regardless of how they identify. So,
Yeah.
I think
And I mean,
that's
you've mentioned this before. You haven't created this rugby club for you because, you're a bit long in the tooth now, but you've done it to give
easy.
that equal opportunity to the youth, to those who wouldn't have that opportunity. It's not that you're doing it for yourself so that you can play.
Mm.
You're doing it for others that are more impacted by the bannings because they're at that age where sport is very important, and they're being cut off from that. So I think what you're doing is good news, and I vote that it's the good news story of the year for this channel.
I'll second that, but I'm biased. All right, let's take a final break, and when we come back, we will have some more good news for you. See you in a bit. Did you know we've got an absolutely wonderful merch store? You can buy merch from the show. You can buy this mug, which supports my rugby team, the Sussex Dragons. This is one of my favourites. This is best part of waking up, turf tears in my cup. We also have t-shirts which support my rugby team, and t-shirts which express our dissatisfaction with England rugby for the way they've treated trans people. And for you bikers out there, we've got our Sisters on Steel Motorcycle Club. Scan this QR code or follow the links on tigergirl.substack.com. Now back to the show. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. Leigh and I were just reflecting over the break that you've really got to dig to find these good news stories. And I think that's something everybody should challenge themselves to do, is just keep trying to find these articles and this good news. Unfortunately, it's just not that easy. And it's like we said, it's because social media gravitates to the hyperbole and to the catastrophe. So I do think it's worth the dive. It's worth the dive in and the digging around to try and find it. I think everybody should do that. So what have you got, Leigh?
So yeah, from our point, just to wrap up, again, fitting into the whole environment kind of theme that we have unofficially got going on here, I found a good news article that talks about deep sea find bringing hope to the Galapagos Islands. Apparently, they have found ancient coral reefs have now been discovered in the waters of Ecuador's Galapagos Island, in a region that was devastated by freak weather conditions 4 decades ago. The 1982-83 El Nino event was thought to have virtually wiped out the reefs around the Galapagos, with Wellington Reef off the coast of Darwin Island thought to be among the few surviving remnants. However, scientists have now discovered extensive reefs in the middle of the Galapagos Island, bringing hope that others may have also survived. So there you go. There's some good news there.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I do find. I think I spoke before about my phobia of deep water. But on the occasions when I have scuba dived, I mean, it is just such an amazing environment, isn't it? Those coral reefs and stuff. And open water diving in South Africa has always been very ecologically friendly. I mean, decades ago when I learned to dive, it was drilled into us. You don't touch the coral. Just float above it and look at it. And so definitely, don't bring any home, because the minute you take it out of the sea, it dies. And it looks so beautiful underwater. And you think to yourself, oh, this would make a lovely ornament. But you have to remember, if you take it out of the ocean, it dies. So that's really important. But yeah, I like that. Despite our best efforts, the environment seems to be doing quite a good job at protecting itself, which is good. I found a really weird one. So apparently, the world's loneliest sheep got rescued this year.
Oh, yay. How
Yeah, so
lovely.
after being stuck on a rock for the past 2 years, the ewe, named Fiona, has been rescued by a band of volunteers. Fiona was stranded at the foot of cliffs in the Scottish Highlands before being rescued in what has been called an epic mission. They said she is an incredible fettle. Britain's loneliest sheep is lonely no more. We've named her Fiona, and now she's safe and well and heading to a well-known Scottish farm park. Oh, isn't that nice?
That's a lovely story. That really is.
Yeah, I love sheeps. I've always thought it's quite ironic that, you've got lambing day, right? And people flock off to go and see these little lambs and interact with the lambs. And then, like 2, 3 weeks later, you have Easter and people tuck into their lamb. Oh, oh, no, 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 no. Yeah, so what have we got here? Let's have a look. We've also got one here, also nature focused, and it says a Yorkshire Nature Reserve improves access for wheelchair users by using recycled material. So it says Yorkshire Water has improved accessibility to Top Hill Low Nature Reserve in East Yorkshire, allowing wheelchair users to access parts of the site for the first time. The firm has used 25,000 tons of recycled soil and other material to create accessible viewing platform. The materials, which otherwise would have been sent to landfill, were left over from a £31 million improvement project at the nearby water treatment. Isn't that nice? Nice environmental good news.
Very good. Yeah, it's strange how all this good news has been linked to certain threads of theme, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Especially
nature
around the
and
environment, nature.
yeah, I hope that means that people are becoming more conscious about the importance of the environment and, participating in environmental activities. And again, I put it down to the pandemic because more people. It's funny. I used to lament how it's like when people aren't locked down, the only thing they want to do is sit on the sofa and watch the telly, right? And then the minute they lifted the lockdown and they said, yeah, you can go for walks with you can go out with family and people in your bubble. Suddenly, all the walking paths that I used to take the dogs on were just completely overwhelmed with people. It's
Mm.
like I will go outside and exercise. I think I must have run like I think I got like because you get these medals, these medals that you can apply for, and like you clock all your runs. So
Yeah,
it's like
virtual running club.
virtual running club. That was it, yeah. And I think I got like 17 medals over lockdown. I definitely, just looking at me laughing now, I think I definitely need to be doing some more running. Yeah. Yeah, that's lovely. Have you got any what else you got? We've got a few minutes left. Got another
No, well, I
story
was
for
just
us?
thinking, the environment and kind of like the focus that we've had, it just springs to mind. They just now this last term, my local beaver and cubs groups have all done their environmental badge, and it's been sort of like different forms of energy, not just coal, recycling. So it's good that this sort of like the youngsters are getting exposed to this, whereas we didn't when we were their age. So I think that's quite positive as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would challenge that. I definitely grew up in a very environmentally conscious environment in Zimbabwe. We actually, at the awful boarding school that I went to, we were co-opted into laboring on a game farm, which now is a nature conservancy that all the schools around come to see the nature, and we built that with our bare hands. It definitely made us a lot more conscious of the environment. Yeah, it's like slave labor, moving rocks and concrete. Yeah.
So I
Anyway,
found one last one to go on
okay.
with. The ozone layer is on track to recover, the UN says. So apparently
Hmm.
the Earth's ozone layer is on track to fully recover within 4 decades, thanks to global efforts to phase out ozone depleting chemicals. So the UN presented its findings recently and said that if current policies remain in place, the ozone layer will fully recover across much of the world by 2040. So that's not too far away. The polar regions would take about 2 decades longer. But that is good news because I remember when the hole in the ozone layer was like, the top news back in the late 1980s, 1990s. And you don't hear too much of it nowadays. There's not that much of an emphasis on the hole in the ozone layer. And in fact, I don't think many of the youngsters today know about it. So to see that it's on its way to being completely restored is really good.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. And the fact that people don't talk about it, yeah, it's not that they weren't doing anything about it. I think we questioned that a while ago, didn't we? Where we said, you don't
Yeah,
really hear about it anymore. But maybe it's because we were winning against that, and so all those people who poo-poo the need to reduce our carbon output, the reality is that when they changed the way things were factured and they reduced the CFCs in various products and things like that, like deodorants, even I remember that was
yeah,
like
and
the big thing,
fridges.
CFC free, and yeah, so it does work. We can actually repair the damage if we commit to it. So my final one, which I just find so sweet and heartwarming, is says here that prisoners in England are being taught to train assistance dogs for the community. Now, I mean, the health benefits, the mental health benefits of working with dogs is just, you cannot even begin to imagine, right? I mean, it just, and here they're actually, doing something that serves not only the prisoners themselves, but obviously is a benefit to society more broadly. It says HMP Dovedale, a high security Category B prison in Staffordshire, is became the first adult men's prison in England to run a full time dog training course. I mean, that just, and you're also giving those inmates a skill and something that
Yeah,
they can do when they leave that they can earn an income from. I just think that's amazing. And a lot of the dogs are rescues that they bring in as puppies. So it's called Restart Dogs Project. And they're paired with prisoners who teach them helpful skills such as carrying items and opening doors. If you're in for burglary,
yeah,
I don't know. But yeah,
but it was opening doors, not picking the locks. Hopefully.
yeah. No, let's be positive. Good nature, right? Humans have a good nature if left to themselves. Um, the Yeah, I like that. I think that's says here the program's first graduate dog Nika has been placed with Alfred Peterkin, a young man with autism. And Alfred's mother said Nika's brilliant. When she feels a meltdown happening, if it's going to take a bit too long, she'll just take him outside, and we've been able to sit in cafes and have drinks, which he didn't do before. Oh, lovely. All right, so
Nice to end on an animal story.
yeah. So there you go, people. There is good news out there. It's not easy to find, but I would challenge all of you to go and find it where you can. So, any final thoughts, Leigh?
No, I just think it was really nice to have a focus on positivity. and I hope that it encourages people to go and look for good news, because it is out there.
Yeah, a nice
I
break
wish
from
it
our
was more
usual.
out there, but yeah, a nice
Yeah.
break.
Cool. Good. Well, thanks everybody for being with us. Stick around after the break for Unorthodox Jukebox, MG's Unorthodox Jukebox, and we will see you all again next week. And with that, it just leaves me to say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from Leigh.
See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
For the community, by the community, Trans Radio UK.
Merry Christmas from everyone at Trans Radio UK.